Hi, I'm Naomi Murphy, and this is the Locked Up Living podcast, where we talk with a wide range of people about harsh aspects of institutional life.
We also explore some of the ways to overcome them and to grow and develop. I'm David Jones. So join us every Wednesday morning, 6 o'clock UK time, for a fresh podcast. Okay, so today we're meeting with Dr. Shivam Dubey and Dr. Salel Gupta. Dr. Dubey is a consultant psychiatrist and Dr. Gupta is a retired obstetrician and paediatrician. Good to meet you both. Thanks very much for coming along today.
Thank you very much,
Glad
David.
to be here.
Hi, really good to see you both again. Could we start with you telling us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to be working together? Because a psychiatrist and an obstetrician aren't natural bedfellows, perhaps.
Yes, I think it's, maybe some blessings or something that we met together, with each other. And so I'm a psychiatrist, and I came to America from India in 2008. And then I did my residency at Harvard Medical School in psychiatry. And then I started practicing psychiatry in different parts of America. I practiced in Indiana, North Carolina, Florida, California, Virginia, all over in different settings. I mean, even in corrections to outpatient, inpatient. While I was doing all that, I figured out there is a need for preventive mental health. So that's how I jumped in, changed my tracks a little bit, and started working on preventive mental health. And while I was working on that, I mean, prevention usually starts from childhood, So I started very early, from children. And that's how God, or whatever you call, sent me the gift of a pediatrician, a neonatologist, an obstetrician, Dr. Gupta. Sometimes you don't know, when you meet somebody, it just clicks. You will meet so many people in your life, and you'll have talk and communication. But when I met him, we just clicked, because he was also believe in prevention, and healing, uh, that kind of things. So we just clicked from, and that's how we connected. And he is the research director for mental health education, the nonprofit we founded uh, for preventive mental health.
Um, Let me just briefly talk about myself. I'm also born and brought up in Delhi, India. I was fascinated by obstetrics, and I looked at maternal mortality rates were so high in developed countries, and I just had a vision that I should become the best possible OB in the world and reduce this mortality and impact on moms and babies. So I was trained in India. I came to United States in 1983 and end up doing pediatrics and neonatology, 6 more years of training. And I focused on bringing advanced knowledge that we all learn in in university settings, and bring them to community hospitals where most of the actions are. And in that process, I thought we should be able to make a significant reduction in mortality and morbidity for moms and babies. And for 35 years, that's what I did. I started 4 different neonatal ICUs and collected data, presented in local, regional, national, and even one international place about the impact, what we can do in community hospitals to improve outcomes of uh, pregnancy. And in COVID in 2020, I took a pause because I was traveling a lot, and my kids were home with me, and they say, "No, you can't do this. You can't be traveling and going to hospitals and doing all this." And I took a pause, and I realized that I was sleeping for the first time in 40 years every night undisturbed. And so I changed that pause to stopping my work as a clinician, but I continued to work on a dream that I had was to create healthy outcomes in 7 different domains of life. And in that connection, I had connected with a common friend, Mr. Brahma Agrawal, for last 4 years. And one of these days, it happens that he has invited Dr. Shivam for dinner and me, and we met. And we, as he said, we connected, uh, and here we are. We become we probably talk to each other every day, 3, 4, 5 times, and he is being very humble. He's very creative, and I'm learning more from him than I don't know if he's learning anything from me.
Well, the first time we met, I actually had this thought in my mind that I can't work with this guy ever, because he was just so much challenging. He was asking me very challenging questions. Like he was like almost like interviewing me or inquiring me. I felt, oh my God, you know. But later on, as the conversation went on, we got connected. But in the first thought was, oh my God, this guy is obnoxious. That's what I felt really about him initially.
Yeah, I have that impression a lot of people because
But
I
really nice
do
to hear
ask.
about that. So obviously, sorry.
I was saying I generally go into deep conversation. I read somewhere that if you ask 4 whys, you go into the depth of that person. So I start asking him. And, a lot of people are not used to being challenged in a casual conversation. And I think then he realized that I was not being mean or anything. I just went down into the depth.
It's really nice to hear that you obviously have a very special connection if you speak to each other so frequently. So obviously that's been really important. And Salil, you're not the first obstetrician we've had on. Actually, we had a British obstetrician on who was a whistleblower because he was also wanting to ensure sort of better rates of safety for mothers. Coming to labour. So yeah, it's nice to have another one on. Shivam, I came across a post you'd written about love and quantum theory. That's how I ended up, connecting with you in the first place. I wondered if you could tell us why love and quantum theory is so relevant to mental health.
Yeah, it's actually a very loaded question. Love and quantum and all that. Dr. Salil actually knows much more about quantum than me. So whatever I'm gonna say, just be ready. He's gonna critic me really bad.
No,
We
no,
still
no.
don't agree with our theories, although we have some,
Yeah,
but he still doesn't agree with everything that I say. But
that's why we are good
what
friends.
I Uh, but what I felt, because as a psychiatrist, I was prescribing medications. I'm the doctor. So when I am the doctor, go into practice, basically we prescribe medication. We don't do much therapy lately because therapists, are doing therapy and psychologists. So when I was prescribing medications, I was fascinated how these chemicals grow in the brain, and change the chemicals in the brain and how people feel better, depression, anxiety, and all that. So it almost made me feel like our body is like a chemical factory. That you take alcohol, mind will change. You take cocaine, mind will change, right? You take serotonin, gradually mind will change, right? On the other hand, if you see if the mind is changed, will the chemicals in the brain change? Is it both ways? So that is true also. If you feel love and all those emotions in your mind, your brain chemicals can be changed too. So so that struck me, like that. So what happens is that when a child is born, he is born with a biology, ancestral DNA given to his by his parents and ancestor DNA, right? And that DNA is deciding all the chemicals in the body, your liver, your kidney, whatever enzymes, all made by DNA, right? All chemicals, right? And if all that is fine, then a child grows up. Then what happens is that child is what is child taught? Child is taught to compete, to be fearful, to be jealous, maybe to compete with others, you beat, winning, and greed, jealousy, all these in the framework of our living in the society. He learns all those some non-loving emotions. I call them non-loving emotions. So I divided the emotions into two categories: loving and non-loving. So all these non-loving emotions, if they chronically, if somebody involved in those emotions, what chemicals will it produce? What neurocircuits will that make? So if a person is neglected, abandoned, gone through trauma, and gone and have non-loving emotions for some time, it could change the neurocircuits, the behavior, and the chemicals. And on the other hand, the loving emotions will produce ha, uh, oxytocin and other chemicals which are good for your body. So that made me think, go into this deep into this love and non-loving and loving emotions, and how they could have healing effect on your body. And while I was you know uh, understanding all this loving and all these emotions, I was also understanding, trying to understand the consciousness, and how consciousness plays into all this. uh, and then I actually came into uh, I came to know about this research by two psychiatrists, child psychiatrists in University of Virginia, Dr. Jim Chucker and Dr. Ian Stevenson. And they have studied 2,500 cases all over the world globally of children who were able to remember their past lives. And I saw their interviews. I saw their presentations in the University of Virginia, the case files they have, and that shocked me, because if that is true, even if one case is true, that means consciousness is much more what we could even think of. That means consciousness is transferring from here to there. And that, while I was working on that, I figured out that if consciousness is traveling from one person to next person, and consciousness is carrying some imprints of the past, and in this life consciousness is carrying the imprints of what happened to you in this life, if you involve in love, that imprints dissolves, gets healed. Love is the healing factor. So there is a way that love could heal your even your past imprints and even imprints of this life. So I started working on that, and that's how this love frequency and all that came into picture. Because when you are in love, you can sacrifice. When you are in love, you can adapt. When you are in love, you forgive. When you are in love, you're happy, joyful, you do good things for others, and your chemicals are also secreted. Cortisol goes low, oxytocin goes high, and all the body, if you are involved in love, all the body functions can work harmoniously. So I started calling love as chemical harmony. Because if in our body all chemicals are there, non-loving hormones will create chemicals which will not be harmonious, but the love will create chemical harmony in your whole body if you could practice that. So that's how this theory developed, and I started working on it. So I've been writing a book called Chemical Harmony, and the love is the chemical harmony. Chemical harmony. That's what it is. Uh,
You're muted.
Thank you, Shivam. As you were talking, I was reminded that this week we're publishing a conversation with a cardiologist, Mitch Abrams, who he had a near-death experience, and that got him really interested in the heart and love. And I think you find a lot that resonates in the conversation with the thoughts that you have. I didn't know whether you wanted to add anything to Shivan's comments, Salil.
Sure. Uh, my involvement with quantum mechanics and quantum consciousness started in a very different way. I have been struck with the nature of the ultimate reality. As a physician trained in science, in physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, the more we delve into what is true nature, I realize that we can reduce the physical world into atoms. We can go deeper into subatomic particles. We have gone even further into this superstring theory or the string theory, which is, trillions of unidimensional vibrating strings creating these particles. But I fail to understand and how life originated, how lifeless particles create life, as Einstein has mused about it. And so when I was 15 and I lost my mom, I got deeper into questions about what is life, what is death, what happens after death. And in that process, I became deeply interested in this quantum mechanics, which is really through many of these contemporary scientists in early 20th century discovered that the reality outside is not fixed. It appears and disappears like quantum particles. They come up in existence and then they disappear. And this whole cosmology, the physical origin, the Big Bang, and all the products of time, space, and matter, as well as the spiritual theories of creation in every human society, talks about how, quote, God created this world. And that led me into much deeper studies into philosophy and ancient wisdom literature. And I came with the understanding, which Shivam had already gotten to it, is that ultimately all spiritual tradition talk about love, an unconditional love. And that is what God or universe is doing to each and every one of us. And if we reciprocate and we can generate and change the physical, the biological, the psychological chemistry. So I came from a what I call a top-down approach, that there is a universal spirit, super intelligence from which arises consciousness, and then it moves down into physical realm. And a lot of people and most of the contemporary scientists do this upward causation, that the atoms becomes molecules, become biology, become psychology, and somehow it leads to consciousness. And that always brings up, well, how does consciousness, which is a non-physical entity, interact with the brain, which is a physical entity? That brings us to that hard problem of consciousness that I and Shivam have been discussing for many months. And again, it's not just me and him. A lot of people have debated on that issue. So, so I think we somehow came up to the similar conclusion that yes, it is the divine love changes chemistry of the brain and can make a beautiful world. On the other hand, non-loving emotions is taking us away from not only being kind and helpful to each other, but also away from the source, the creator, the universal force.
I want to add one more thing. Pure blissful consciousness, which is considered as the ultimate reality. So, if there is any consciousness or any, you know, reality, that is pure blissful consciousness, which is very kind of loving kind of frequency, and we all are come out of that frequency from that, we manifest from it. But when we manifest from it, we gather all non-loving emotions, and that's what create suffering. And when we align with the loving frequency, with loving emotions, we try to get closer to the reality, ultimate reality. So I actually had a post on LinkedIn about selfless love, selfless work. And I mentioned, when is the time when you actually feel true to yourself, you feel yourself truly. And that is when you involve in selfless love, selfless work, when you donate, when you help others. That's the moment that you feel, wow, you know, you dissolve all the added, you can call karma or imprints, or and then you dissolve yourself. When you're in selfless love, you dissolve yourself actually, selfless, and that is when you feel truly yourself. So you get closer to that pure blissful consciousness, ultimate reality. So one thing I want to point out here also is that one thing is a belief or knowledge that I may have gathered through reading books and all this, and I'm talking about blah blah, this and that. The other thing is my experience, because if I did not have experience, my intellect, whatever in my intellect, my knowledge, that I'm putting all these things in my brain, and I'm just using my box and just you know uh, speaking on it. But the awareness, the consciousness behind the intellect, if that consciousness have not felt it, then this all intellect is just trying to prove this and that, has no value. So whatever I'm saying, don't believe it. To my audience, I don't want you to believe any of it. You have to seek it, you have to experience it yourself, and it may be totally different how I experienced it or how I found it. You may have your own journey. You don't have to believe it. You can believe in whatever you want. But I would ask you to stop believing and start seeking or experiencing, and you might find something.
So, Shivam, as you were talking, I was wondering how normal is it for psychiatrists in America to be talking about love and quantum theory, and how do these discussions go down with your colleagues?
I actually never had any of my colleague contact me or even talk about it ever.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why he's
We have
talking to
too much.
obstetrician and
We
pediatrician.
we already have too much other things to talk on. The mental health field is, it's evolving very fast. New medications, new concepts, new diseases are coming very fast. You won't believe it. In my lifetime as a practicing psychiatrist, suddenly the patient started coming to me and telling me that don't call me he or she, call me they. And I'm telling you, I was practicing from 2008. I never heard that until recently. Some kids started coming me and calling me that they are they. I didn't know that. So this is something new came up, and then there are lots of new diseases is just keep coming and medications. So if I'm interacting with my colleagues, it's about new medication. Hey, did you pass the board exam? Hey, did you know there is a new injection for 6 months that you can give new medication, new, and what are the laws and in different states, how you can practice telepsychiatry and all this. This is what we talk about. Going to deeper conversation is very rare. Even on my posts, hardly any psychiatrists ever comment. Only very few psychiatrists, and I won't, you won't believe it. Actually, when I posted something about consciousness and all that, one of the psychiatrists from India, who's supposed to know all that as considered being in India, he was actually very critic of me. He say, you are talking nonsense, you don't know nothing like that, you know so it's in when you go into the Western science and this, all that, you leave all that behind. There is no way you can connect with it. It's very difficult.
Well, I did
I
wonder
like
whether
to
the
say,
fact that you're both writing and talking about this is due to the fact that your heritage is from an Eastern country where there's perhaps a more willingness to think about things like consciousness.
well, I
I
think
just, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Salil.
what I was going to say is it's a really valid question that Naomi is asking, that why is most of the psychiatrists don't interact on this space about prevention? Because I think our medical education and healthcare system has become too much focused on fixing the problem. Identifying the problem is not that critical, and doing a primary prevention or even a secondary prevention is not what we were taught in med schools. Nobody talks about the the value of mental health education, not in schools, not in colleges, not in professional colleges, not even during our residencies. So it is no surprise that most of psychiatrists have no time to think about these. And it is a sad commentary on our current healthcare system that we are willing to spend billions and billions of dollars on drugs to combat mental health, but not enough money is spent to train each and every one of us to become competent in dealing with our own emotions, our own understanding, and that That has to change. If we want to make a difference, we need mental health education. And Dr. Shivam and I are involved in changing that paradigm by introducing mental health education as a subject during schools. And Dr. Shivam may have more on his on that.
Well, we will come to that a little later, I think. But just before we move on to that, I was just,
Sure.
thinking about the implications of what we've just been talking about. And it sounds like you're saying we need to be talking much more about the soul in healthcare and thinking about that element of humanity.
Yeah, ultimately, we all gonna ask this question sooner or later. And in our mental health education, we actually don't talk about soul yet. We don't talk about soul. We talk about insight. We talk about reflection. We teach children early on that they stop and look at what is it. Instead of running, they stop and reflect on metacognition, you know because the only way the human evolution could happen is by reflecting on us, and for that you will have to take a pause. You pause, you become mindful, and you see what are your deficiencies, what are your strengths, and how you can improve. That's how human evolution will progress. But what is happening, we are not teaching this skill, the patience. We are not teaching patience. We are teaching how to be fast, how to beat others. We are not teaching how to be compassionate, you know. So that kind of education will may lead a person to develop an insight, and with reflection he may go to the spirit consciousness and all those things. But we're not teaching the child in our education that. But then that's what I said. Don't believe in anything. We'll just give you tools of reflect on yourself. You may find something deeper. So to answer your question, we are not teaching the soul to to the children. We are very secular. We are non-religious. We are non-sectarian. We are giving life skill tools for everyone to find themselves and live life happily. Some of the tools which are evidence based, not like I created or somebody created. It's just research based tools: mindfulness, resiliency, problem solving. And there are tons of researchers there. You don't have tons of researchers already there. We just nobody's putting it together, and that's what we have done, I guess, in our curriculum.
That's fascinating material that you've been describing to us, and it's always, for a layman like myself, is always complicated when people start talking about quantum effects, because they're right at the borderline of our own experience, let alone our own knowledge. But I wonder if there's a link here. Do you think training as a medical professional makes it more or less likely that you think about spirituality? And is there a direct connection between spirituality and quantum effects?
See, consciousness, quantum is the new terminology to define spirituality only, actually. Spirituality has started since, I guess, the humanity has started. You look at native Indians. In America, native Indians, if whenever I meet them, they are very, very spiritual. Spirituality has been there when the science came. And you know that when the science came, there was always a friction between science and religion, because religion talked about spirituality and science did not want to look at the evidence. And spirituality is not, you don't have instruments to test spirituality. you know we don't have those instruments. Our antennas, our software or our hardware. Actually, our hardware is there, but you have to work on your hardware to receive that frequency. There's so many frequencies our hardware cannot receive, right? They're all there. When I'm talking to you, your image and your voice is coming from somewhere and reaching this computer, and computer can receive it, but I cannot receive it. So our hardware is there, it needs to be developed to receive those quantum frequencies and all that. So spirituality has been there. Now with the advent of science and this quantum new terminology is coming, and now we are trying to understand if the spirituality and the quantum is like we are talking the same thing with the strings theory and all those things that are coming up. So basically, definitely I think there is a need of spirituality in our education, because if you are keeping spirituality out of education, it's just gonna become like a transaction, especially in doctor patient relationship, student teacher relationship. When it becomes very transactional, you lose the value of it, you know. So in doctor patient, it's now transactional, very becoming transactional. Used in the past, doctors used to be considered like, a healer, you know. But now the doctors are not healers, they are just a transaction. I'm paying, doctor, patient is paying, doctor should do this and that, that kind of thing. That is good for accountability, because doctors were losing accountability. Some of them, that's good for accountability, but we also need to teach the doctors about the spirituality so that they can help the patient from a broader perspective, not just transactional care, you know. So yeah, did I answer your question, David?
Yeah, very, very helpful. And I'll try and bring in Salil because you disappeared for a moment. But we were just talking about spirituality and its links or otherwise with quantum effects. And Sivan was just, if I can briefly describe, was suggesting that quantum is the new language, really, for spirituality. What would you say about that?
I know there is a lot of physicists who are trained deeply into quantum physics, quantum field theory, and they are all pointing towards this realm, this higher consciousness realm that exists, and most of the qualities of that consciousness, universal consciousness, is eternal. It's beyond space, and it is beyond matter. So if you look at the traditional quote, the physicist origin of this universe through the Big Bang, about 14, 15 billion years ago, and that created the three things that we know: space, time, and objects or matter. And the consciousness is beyond these three things, beyond time, beyond material or matter, and beyond space. So how do we understand something which is beyond time and beyond matter and beyond space? Our minds are not designed to comprehend. And in that sense, quantum theory has really been a rescue, because in quantum we have this understanding that things can pop up and disappear. The matter and antimatter particles, they keep popping up and annihilating each other. And for whatever reason, there was a time when the matter was not completely annihilated, and that became the Big Bang and the universe. But if you look into any of the spiritual literature, be it Hinduism or Christianity, the the God created this world, but what did the God use to create this world? And again, it just appeared. Things started happening. And to me, spirituality and quantum field theory are intimately linked to each other. You cannot describe consciousness without quantum, and you can't describe the current physical world without quantum also. So that's my understanding.
I do find it quite interesting, actually. How I feel, as like becoming a psychologist, that this emphasis on science and understanding the science behind things could often seem to sort of squash any reflections on things like spirituality. Certainly in the earlier on in my career, and it seemed like it was much more fashionable to be atheist and reject all notions of spirituality in favour of science. And yet, how I've come around to thinking much more about spirituality has been by following the science. And I hated physics at school, but increasingly find myself watching physicists talking on YouTube about quantum theory, and I think, how did I end up here?
Yeah, it's a there are only, I think, hand-picked physicists who have made this connection with the consciousness, and there is like 99% of the physicists who discount any reference to something higher than the molecules, even though the whole quantum theory, whole uncertainty principle came up with this, that without the observer there is no observation. Somebody has to be observing for this physical, objective, external world to be there. And for people who are interested in the truth and the true nature of reality, it seems if you don't believe in consciousness, there is nothing else you could believe in it, because all your observations are in the mind or in the consciousness. As we say in our philosophical system, everything appears in consciousness and disappears in consciousness.
Thank you very much. I think we'll continue to chew these things over in our mind for hours after this conversation. But
Yes.
moving on a bit, if we could perhaps move on to what you've been doing, can you tell us what the MindSync curriculum is and how it emerged and what you're doing with it?
Yes. So the MindSync, I'll just take my book here for the modules. The MindSync The mind sync, synchronizing your mind with the reality, not with anything else, not from the past and present, but synchronize it with the reality and being in the present moment. And then have the ability to reflect on the present moment, what decisions you're taking, what emotions you're having in that moment, having that ability to take it, become an observer and act not reactively but respond. That is what we teach is in the MindSync. And then, as we talked about preventive mental health, and the time has come with the advent of this mental health epidemic that we need to have a formal training of mental health education skills that have shown by evidence that if they are taught to children or even adults, they will help you deal with the stress in the life. As we know, the stress is inevitable. It could get you from anywhere. As a child, your parents can get divorced, you can get into accident. I mean, anything could happen. We need to equip the children of today and adults of today with these very skills, like we fortify the milk with vitamin D, or in India we fortify salt with iodine. We need to fortify the human minds with these skills. The time has come with all this, the things that we have created in our lives, with the media and the change in our the culture, and the families are moving, migration, they're not together. The education that we used to get in the past is not there, and the stresses have exponentially increased. So the time has come that we need to have a formal education of these skills. That's what the mental health education curriculum is. Mental health education is a subject in 30, more than 30 schools in India, going to 30,000 children, in which they all get a book, like a subject, like a mathematics, science, they have a separate subject. Teachers are trained with this education, and all children will, from first to 12th grade, get a book, syllabus book, and then there are 30 chapters in each book. So teachers go into the class, teach the child every week one chapter, and after every 6 chapters there is an assessment. And what do we teach them? We teach them evidence based skills, competencies, self awareness, so that they become aware of themselves, self management, how to manage yourself, responsible decision making, relationship skills, social awareness. These are the five main skills that have shown that if you teach these skills to the children, these competencies, it might prevent mental health problems. On top of it, we also teach them positive psychology, problem solving, mindfulness, resiliency. This is also incorporated into our curriculum. So it's like a very formal, it's just like any other subject. First time introduced into schools, very for all the when we implement this program in any school, the whole school changes. The school has to introduce a new subject, new books, new, the teachers are taught, assessment is like any other subject they learn mental health education.
Thank you. So really, you've identified a huge gap, really, in the training and education of young people. That sounds terribly interesting. What age are you aiming this at?
So it starts from the school. When you go to from first grade, we also have kindergarten, but we usually focus on first grade to 12th grade. So school system, when kids are
Right.
learning geography, history, whatever, they at the same time they are also learning mental health education as in another subject. So from first grade to 12th grade. So yeah, it's very interesting actually. When we go to school, we are taught about everything about outside, geography, history, mathematics, but we are not taught about inside. So I call it inside learning. The how do we, manage ourselves. So that education was missing. So we introduced it as a mental health education.
So I wonder why that's absent then from schools. I wonder if there must be some
Well,
kind of.
yeah, it is. It has been there in some
Hmm.
form, like physical education, some mindfulness classes here, there. It wasn't formally introduced. It was just random. Some teacher will come and give you a class on resiliency, mindfulness. Here, there, it goes. But now we have it introduced as a formal, structured program, like a subject, like I told you. It wasn't like that. It was casual little bit, and there was no assessments or to check if a child is lacking in one competency or that competency. We When we assess the child, we divide their performance into need or typical or strength. So if we know a child is in need, then he needs some more work on that competency, so we can work with the child. Like if a child is in need area in relationship skills, so we can work on that child to make him either in typical or strength range. So we basically try to make it a formal, structured educational curriculum. That's what we try to make it. Yeah.
Thank you. And you're mainly running this in India, are you?
Yes, so we are running is in India, and we recently launched in Dubai, UAE, and we are starting in a very big school in UAE. And you won't believe it, we created this curriculum for America because I have been in America since 2008. Most of my working career I was in America, so everything is created for America. But I was able to launch it in India because in America I'll need a lot of funding to get it launched in America. I did not have that kind of
There we go.
funding. So I could not launch it in America. But in America, we are running another version of it, which is one to one. In America, at this point of time, any child in America can get one to one education with our master's level psychologist, and the same curriculum which is taught in India to in a group of class in America is taught one to one from first grade to 12th grade. I can send you the link. You can just go and enroll for free. It's running free. We have got a little grant from a NBA team, Orlando Magic. So we ran that program through their help, and now we are just trying to do it with donation basis. And we are, and actually, you won't believe, Naomi, when I launched that and everybody was saying, why are you doing it for free? I said, I want to show the world what is selfless love. I want people to practice, feel it, the selfless love is. Because when a child and in their home, and the parents and our psychologist comes on Zoom and teach them all this funny, our sessions are very engaging and very funny, and do this class, and they ask how much it costs. It's free. And they were like, what? And that gives me satisfaction more than anything. And you won't believe it, we to a second grader, we were teaching the child about the brain. We were teaching them that you have an owl brain, which is like your prefrontal cortex, which thinks wisely, and you have a lizard brain, which is like your brain stem, which is very impulsive, and you have a dog brain, which is like very emotional. And one time, a child, his parents were like having some blah blah, fighting back and through, and he went to his mom and said, "Mom, you are using your lizard brain." And mom was like, "What?" It actually happened. And then mom told me that, my child reminded me to not use your reptilian brain and be impulsive. Instead, take a pause and calm down your emotions and use your owl brain, which is your prefrontal cortex. So it's basically, we are trying to make these knowledge of brain, which is out there, into the conversation, into the into the brains of people, so they can use this knowledge. This knowledge is out there, but nobody's using it. Just by pausing to think that you are being impulsive, or maybe you acting out from your reflexes, because most of us are using our automatic brain. automatic reflexes that have been trained to us in 20, 30, 40 years of life, and we don't even notice. Like we drive a car right now, we push brakes without even thinking. You will drive 10 miles, you don't even know when you turn steering wheel without even noticing. So who is driving the car?
It's a
Car
great
is
example to hear how things can spread though by intervening with one part of a family system that actually there might be knock-on benefits to other family members at the same time. And if you share that link, Shivam, we'll put that in our show notes and in the transcript so that people can
for
find that
sure.
I
intervention.
think we should launch this in British schools now.
It's
Probably.
everywhere.
I have no links to British schools, sadly. You're also developing something called the Mighty Champions of Mental Health.
Yes, so
What's
Mighty
this
Champions.
project?
Yeah, Mighty
Yeah.
Champions is for adults. So, when I launched for kids, I felt like why I'm leaving adults behind. So it's a shorter version of the whole big curriculum for the schools. We launched a shorter version of it. It's called Mighty Champions of Mental Health, in which we want people to have three things in their life. So whenever you become Mighty Champion, you do three things. Step one, you become self-aware. When you join it, we'll give you tools to become self-aware. Learn about your biology. When I was in residency, I was taught biopsychosocial model. So I'm stuck with that in my brain because I was taught a lot about it. Biopsychosocial. Everybody should know about their biopsychosocial. Biopsychosocial is biology. You should know about your biology, your ancestor DNA, what may be predisposing this to you to any disease, health, physical or mental, whatever. You should know that you are vulnerable for certain things. Second thing, you should be aware of your psychology. Psychology is the core beliefs that you have developed over the lifetime. You learn that you may have learned that you are not good enough. You may have learned that you're not accepted. You may have learned that you are accepted or you are loved. Whatever core beliefs you have developed. So I created 101 core beliefs about yourself, about the world, and other miscellaneous. And I want people to find out if they have those core beliefs, because core beliefs could be changed with repetition. Like you learn how to drive a car reflexly, your core beliefs could also be changed, and new, better core belief could be your reflex through neurocircuit training. So that's what that's the step one, self-awareness, in which we are biopsychosocial, and social is obviously your social factors in your life which may be contributing to mental health problems. Step one is social self-awareness. Step two, learning 10 skills. Like we teach to children, we teach in Mighty Champions, we teach 10 skills: self awareness, self management, relationship skills, responsible decision making, social awareness, cognitive concepts, positive psychology, resiliency, problem solving, mindfulness, all these. And step three is that you share with others. And you also have to take a test to pass this. And when you pass this, we give you a certificate of Mighty Champions of Mental Health in your community. And you are knowledgeable, you're self-aware, you're knowledgeable, and you're ready to share. That's my understanding of combating this epidemic, that making every person in the community, and I have a dream of making at least 1 million people by 2027, 1 million people educated with this education, and that the community, people to people learning could may combat this epidemic. That's what I think. That's what Mighty Champions is about. And why is it mighty? Because mental health is often considered stigma. So you have to be mighty to a champion of mental health. You have to be mighty.
Thank you. And we will share links to both your profiles on LinkedIn in our show notes and the transcript so that people are able to reach out and connect with you if they can think of ways that those programs might be useful for communities that they're involved with. David.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So you've both had very considerable careers and you're still both very busy, clearly. So how do you look after yourselves, emotionally in particular?
Like I gave you a hint earlier, that don't believe in anything. Experience yourself. And that's what I'm trying to experience every moment. Selfless love. If you are able to live in the moment and reflect on yourself and shower that love on yourself and others, besides
Thank you.
that, you know, all those healthy things, exercise, sleeping, eating right, all that. And people will, all doctors will tell you that. So, but I'm telling you something which I think is, you know, may take you out of suffering and satisfaction.
I think each of us has peak moments of insight that happens, and most of these insights happen during some adversity that you are facing. And so welcoming adversity, reflecting on what is the lesson that this adversity is trying to teach me, and get on with that lesson. And I think that there is, all adversities are meant for you to learn something, and unless you learn that, that adversity is not going to go away. And the minute you have learned that lesson, it will be part of your life. And at least I can tell in my own life experiences that yes, just like everyone else, I have faced a lot of challenges, lot more than I can think of average person. But I think what I have stepped back, reflected on it, looked at what can I learn from this experience. And once I have learned that experience and has incorporated into my thinking, then things kind of move on forward. So welcome adversity in your life.
Okay, that's a good tip. Well, thank you very much to the two of you. You've made a very complicated area of work and thinking a bit clearer. Thanks very much indeed.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you for
thank you for
inviting
having
us.
us.
Yes. Bless
Sorry,
you.
thank you.